Hello and welcome to a discussion of the group project for MSAI 631 AI HCI. If you're not in the 16-week class, don't worry about it. This is still applicable. The group project is just split up a little differently. For those of you in the residency, this is a precursor to what we'll talk about in person. Moving into the agenda, we'll talk about the group project and then some of the options that you can have as far as how to approach and address this project. It is a significant amount of work in this course, and it does contribute a significant percentage of your points. So do take this seriously. The basic project is broken up into essentially 5 different chunks. We start off with a proposal. We'll talk about it in a moment. Then design, the source code, the results, and then a presentation. So the proposal is basically what it sounds like. Let me know what you're planning to do as a group. Review all the instructions, and there is a detailed document that goes over it in addition to this material. And then you're going to write a relatively short paper. The length of it is not as much my concern as is the content. And the things that you need to address is the type of AI you are going to be utilizing. So what sort of a version of it are you going to be dealing with? Are you going to be dealing with generative text, retrieval augmented generation, RAG? You're going to be using, which is both of these are going to be using LLMs, but that type of technology, what are you planning to use to solve this project? What environment the project is going to be built in? I would potentially advise Hugging Face. And it's spelled incorrectly here, but it is because spell checkers don't like it as they called it. But do take a look. It's what I would recommend. You also have Google Collaboratory. Could do it on a local laptop, but it's going to be a pretty interesting laptop to do what you can do on some of these other environments. How version control will be accomplished, and it could be as simple as you export it to a GitHub repo at the end. The software libraries and tools to be utilized, models if you have an idea at this point, and so on. And then the type of models that you're going to use or the potential list of models. So software is going to be things like the framework you're going to be leveraging, TensorFlow or whatever. You may not care too terribly much if you're using Hugging Face. It kind of abstracts some of that from you. When you do the design, it's going to be a longer document. It's going to talk about things that are going to be going in and out of the system, a problem that this project is attempting to address, the limitations that you anticipate, the general domain, and likely you're going to reuse portions of your proposal in this document, and that is acceptable, and given the nature of this assignment, expected. Your source code is going to be the code that was either written or reused and modified. So if you wrote it all, fantastic. If you use somebody else as a starting point and built upon it, perfectly fine. Make sure you give credit to those sources that you used for either inspiration or for a starting point. That's applicable in software as much as it is in writing. If you take somebody else's code, perfectly fine. Just give them credit. That's what we're asking for. You'll want to create a zip of your source code as well as putting the actual source code into a repository. Note that Hugging Face can do some of that stuff for you automatically. And then also include a short document that outlines any resources utilized if the code functions. If it doesn't function, what do you think is likely the problem? And this is telling you it doesn't have to run for you to be able to get by this class. So sometimes you run into obstacles and you can't get it to complete. Just make sure you explain what's going on. And it's anticipated that would be maybe a page or 2 document. It's more to provide some context to go with the source code. The results in a 5 to 7 page paper that's in APA format document the overall experience of the group, document any challenges encountered and mitigation strategies that you use, document the things you learned by doing this project. And that's what really is important here, is for you to be learning and being able to apply new concepts and ideas. Then reuse the proposal, design, and source code document as necessary and appropriate. So this is one example where we kind of expect you to use other documents as part of your submission. So don't get too worried about safe assign and all that stuff. This is anticipated. What is the context domains of the project? So what's the point? What are you trying to do? your proposed solution. Sounds a little bit like that proposal document, right? Technologies utilized and references for additional learning, and then discuss group dynamics in a positive way. Each member can document their experiences if so desired. The overall results, and then does your solution work? If so, include screenshots or videos showing you interacting with it, which is the fun part. Your presentation, in a relatively short presentation, definitely less than 20 slides, present the project results succinctly. So basically take that document that we just talked about, boil it down to a presentation, and then present it. The problem addressed, the technology used, discussed your experiences, and so on. What went well, what could have went better. Moving on to the options for this course, and I've kind of already outlined some of them for this group project. You could do thing with retrieval augmented generation. So RAG, what is it? It's an AI framework for retrieving facts from an external knowledge base to ground a large language model on the most accurate, up-to-date information, and to give users insight into LLM's generative process. And you can certainly do some retrieval or information on that, if you will. This is a very popular form of generative AI, so it is something that you might have an interest in doing. You may need to come up with some sort of way of creating that knowledge base. So the idea is you take a large language model that has been trained on something, big corpus somewhere, as is how they work. And then you'll augment, essentially do some form of almost like transfer learning. So you're going to add some additional documents of your own and use the LLM to actually retrieve from your own document knowledge base. Organizations do this all the time to go through all of their documented procedures, help manuals, whatever it might be, as a way of making it easier to find stuff. Large language model chatbot. So this is something that most of you are familiar with. What is it? If you don't know, you've been living under a rock for the past 6 months to a year or longer. So think ChatGPT, think Microsoft's, whatever they're calling it this week, essentially the bot that you have on the side of your Edge Explorer if you're using it. Also, it is a deep learning based approach trained on large amounts of data. And by large, I do mean large, like lots and lots of books, if you were to think of it that way, as far as size, like millions of books sort of size. So they are cool, are useful, and so on. And it could be something else, right? So keep that in mind. Do get approval before your proposal is due. So make sure that you run it by me beforehand so that you don't get back something unexpected whenever I deny whatever it is you're trying to propose. If it's too simple, then it may not be appropriate, or too complex. You may not realize how hard what you're trying to do is. So send me a message in some way. Email is perfectly fine ahead of time. I'll send back the approved or some suggestions. And as a key thing is obvious, it needs to be about AI HCI. So that's the topic of this course, and in particular of this group project. And ideally, it should be really leaning into those large language models because they are pretty important these days. Not to say there aren't other technologies that might be appropriate. But if you have any questions about this assignment, do ask, because it is important. Big chunk of your grade, so don't wait. And as always, if you have a question, reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Stay safe. We'll talk again soon.